Welcome to another edition of Talk City Greensboro, produced by GTN, featuring interviews and events happening around town. It's an easy way to stay in the know while you're on the go. Subscribe to Talk City on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or SoundCloud so you can keep up with what's going on in Greensboro city government and more. I'm your host, Josh Johnson. Rosemary and Carlos are on assignment today, so I'm flying solo, almost. I want to thank you for listening to our conversations each week. I sincerely hope you were able to catch our last podcast, and we invite you to share it and tell a friend. On the show today, we're excited to have as our return guest, she's an alumni, the city's fantastic recycling and waste reduction educator, Masey DeMoss. Thanks for being here, Masey. Yay!
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me.
You couldn't talk Tori or Ashley into coming, huh?
Nah, they were both busy. I was like, all right,
Whatever.
come by myself.
So, I'm going to just hit you with the question right out of the gate.
Okay.
Why has waste reduction and recycling education become so important?
Well, it's become extremely important because if we don't reduce our waste and recycle, we are going to be swimming in garbage. It's going to be everywhere. We really are running out of landfill space in North Carolina and all over the country. So we want to reduce our waste so we're not filling up our landfills and, destroying our natural environment. So it's extremely important. And one thing I like to point out to people is that plastic is here for a very, very long time. Literally all the plastic that's ever been created it's still here.
In the history of the world.
Yeah, all the plastic that's ever been created is still here on Earth, and it will continue to be for a really long time. And it disintegrates, it turns into microplastics, but it's never really gone.
Right. And then once it's microplastics, then it gets into things that get into us.
Exactly. Water and our food and all kinds of things.
So it helps to think of plastic as you talk to people about half-life or nuclear waste and things like that. And we get really aghast at that. But plastic's pretty much in the same category, right?
Yeah, exactly.
In its own way.
Exactly. And anything that goes to the landfill is going to stay there for a really long time, even if it breaks down naturally in the environment really quickly. Stuff like paper and, cardboard that easily would break down if it were out in nature. When it goes to the landfill, it doesn't, because there's no oxygen in the landfill. And so that we don't have landfill fires, but anyways, it doesn't break down at the landfill. So even that stuff stays for a really, really long time.
So how do people sometimes I feel like people kind of get, they hear the word recycling and then there's just a click in their brain and it's oh, whatever, I put my bottles here, I've got my bins, but there is so much more to learn about recycling. I know you and I were talking before the show and you were even you continue to learn. Yeah,
exactly. When I started this job, I thought I was the best recycler in the world. I was like, oh man, I got this. I'm doing everything right. Yeah. And then when I started, I realized that there's so much more to it, that some stuff that I wasn't doing correctly, or just more behind the scenes to learn about. I didn't know about paper having to be bigger than a Post-it note. And I didn't know about plastic having to be bigger than a yogurt container to be recycled. Because if not, that stuff just falls through the cracks and becomes contamination. So there is a lot to learn still.
Yeah. So when you talk about contamination, explain that to me. What is contamination, first of all? And then I hear contamination rate in our, the garbage that we collect. So what is that?
Yeah. So contamination is anything that is not recyclable that goes to the recycling facility and can actually hurt or, lower the value or get into the good recyclables. Right. So for example, shredded paper is not recyclable because it goes everywhere like confetti and gets all over. Yeah.
It looks like snow there. Doesn't it?
So it just goes everywhere and gets all over. It could get all over the plastics, get into any of the other good recyclables and cause them to have something that's not what it's supposed to be in there.
And so these materials are even made of the things that we like to recycle, but because they're so small, they can't be recycled. So they're considered contamination, even though they are plastic, even though they are paper.
Exactly.
We don't want them in the recycling.
Exactly. Yeah. And you were talking about the contamination rate. I think the last time I was here, we were talking about the audit that we did last May.
Yeah.
That was really successful. We had a great time out there at the White Street landfill, and we got our results back and found out that our contamination rate in Greensboro is pretty high. Ugh. It's actually 37%, which is a lot higher than the national average. So the contamination rate is just like what percent of stuff that goes into the recycling carts that's not recyclable. Right. So about 37% of the stuff that's in there isn't recyclable.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's, I understand it because I mean, I'm guilty of doing it in the past before I was educated. It's very easy to take something like a Post-it note or something like a small piece of plastic and just say to yourself, hey, it's plastic, boom, it goes in there, and you don't think about it anymore.
Yeah.
You really have to be more aware and selective of how you recycle.
Yeah, exactly.
To be successful at it. Yeah. Recycling correctly is important. But one thing that's even more important, as important or more, is the idea of waste reduction and just, not producing so much waste. I mean, tell me more about, why that's important, waste reduction, and how we can be better at it.
Yeah. So waste reduction is definitely extremely important. And a lot of people, hyperfixate on recycling. Oh, if you want to do the right thing for the earth, then recycling is the right way to go. But and that is true. We do want to recycle and recycle correctly, but waste reduction is really a lot of the answer. Right. Or that's how we can make the biggest impact, because no matter how much you recycle, if you're creating a ton of waste, then that's still a problem. Yeah. A lot of things can only be recycled so many times. Aluminum and glass are like the two only infinitely recyclable things. So eventually those products are going to have to go into the landfill if you're using them. Right. So reducing your waste is the biggest thing that you can do. And that's like not using a reusable water bottle instead of a plastic one. We talked about this last time.
Yeah.
And, when you go out to eat, maybe bringing your own utensils instead of using plastic utensils, stuff like that. Not using plastic bags, bringing reusable bags. So, yeah.
So just kind of creating or developing habits where you're not using the single-serve type stuff.
Exactly.
When it comes to plastics and things like that.
Yeah, and a lot of that is not recyclable stuff in the first place, like the plastic cups, the plastic utensils, paper plates, like we talked about. All that is not recyclable.
Yeah.
And that's something you're using for literally like a few minutes, and then it's going to be in the landfill forever.
Forever.
Yeah.
So just as important as learning how to recycle right is starting to develop habits and look at your lifestyle in a way that doesn't generate as much waste.
Absolutely, yes.
So any additional tips for that, or just try to avoid like the single-serve stuff as much as possible?
Yeah, so avoiding the single-use plastics especially is a huge thing. And then just like doing a waste audit has really helped me to see how much waste I was creating. Okay. Because you really don't know until you log it and see how much you have created. So doing that is really important, I think, to start your journey.
Yeah.
And developing those habits, not using single-use items. And then just investigating where your products come from, where your products come from, really, and how they're made. So yeah.
So there's a lot you can do, and you can obviously take it many steps further. But some of the basics are, like pack a spoon, pack a fork. Have some things, utensils to use. It's very easy to go to the restaurant with these things in hand and just say, no, I don't need plastics. I've got what I need here. So
yeah.
And I think straws are also a big thing. We're trying to get away from plastic straws.
Yeah, the straws.
Man, don't even make me start on the straws.
Don't get me started. They're in the top 10 most littered items in the U.S. and internationally. So they're causing problems in that way because they're getting into our waterways. And you don't need a straw. Oh, well, some people really do need a straw, and that's okay if you need a straw.
Yeah.
But if you need a straw, maybe if you can, bring your own straw.
Absolutely.
And if you don't need a straw, don't use it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I'm a big fan of I've seen some people with metal straws that come in containers. It's very sci-fi and slick, very James Bond. So
we actually have some.
Really?
Maybe I'll bring you one. Yeah, we
That'd
have
be
some
awesome.
in a little container, and you can put your utensils in there too. So,
Fantastic. All right.
we always tell people to start doing one thing a month. That way you're not overwhelmed, because it can be like really intimidating
Sure.
to be like, oh my gosh, I have to cut out all the plastic in my life. I need to switch all these things all at once. It could be very expensive, and it's really intimidating
Sure.
to try to do all that.
Yeah.
And we also tell people to not use up what you have before you go and like buy new stuff. So like, I want to switch out my Ziploc bags for the reusable Ziploc bags. I already have some, but I still have some like Ziploc bags from like 2 years ago.
Right.
And I'm going to use those before I go buy new stuff. So
Okay.
use up what you have before you just go out and buy a bunch of new stuff to be sustainable.
Right. And small steps.
Small steps.
Ease into the pool. Don't
Yeah.
jump in. That way it won't be so overwhelming.
Yeah.
21 days to change a habit. If you take small steps before you know it, you've made some significant changes.
Exactly. Yeah.
You were talking about the audit that you did, and that's kind of part of data metrics and things that you guys are collecting. You're looking at what's going into the landfill, and you're kind of measuring and paying attention to what you're seeing happen there. Mm-hmm. How does that help us be more effective as far as our recycling efforts?
Yeah, so the audit was actually with recyclable, so it's not stuff that's necessarily going to go to the landfill unless it's contamination that gets sorted out. But
Okay.
Pretty much the data is helping us like know what we need to improve on, and what we really need to improve on is bagged recycling. A lot of people are still putting their recycling in bags, which is a no-go. You want to put it loose in the cart. We've got glass. That was a huge part of our contamination too. And then other recyclables, which are like plastic solo cups, like plastic Starbucks cups, plastic utensils, paper plates, paper towels, stuff like that.
Single serve stuff.
Serve stuff. Yeah.
And I think things we had changed. So now we don't really take glass in our recycling, but we have multiple drop off sites for glass.
Oh yeah, we've got. So I think we have 19 now.
Right.
That's what we worked on a lot this past year, trying to get more glass recycling drop-off sites. And I think we added like 9. I can't remember the exact number. We added quite a few. So if you think you know which one is closest to you, check again, because there might be another one that's even closer.
And what's the easiest way to check that?
You can go on our website and look on the GSO Collects app. If you search glass on there, it'll tell you all the glass drop-off sites.
Okay, very easy to find out.
Yeah.
So with the information that you've collected, what are some of the things that you were... One thing is specifically I've heard is increased tagging. There's an effort now. You guys are like checking recyclables before they're picked up, right?
Yeah. And so that's always kind of been a practice that we've done, but not to this scale.
Right.
And we're going out to areas that are a little bit more concerning and have a little bit higher of a contamination rate. And we're going out, checking literally every can. We want to touch every can on that route and either give them like, hey, you need to change your habits just a little bit, or hey, this is like not good. You have some work to do.
Right.
Or give them a thank you for recycling right sticker. So
Awesome.
we're trying to tell everybody on that route how they're doing, and really focus in there. We actually need volunteers. So if anybody is interested in coming out to help us volunteer, we're riding around looking in recycling carts and tagging them. You are welcome to volunteer. And if you want to volunteer, you can email us at gogreen@greensboro-nc.gov.
Okay. And anybody can volunteer? I mean...
Yeah, anybody.
All right.
Yeah.
Hours...
Oh, yeah.
they're flexible as far as when people can be there? And
Well, we do have specific dates because, you
Okay.
know, recycling is picked up on these
On those
specific
dates.
days.
Gotcha.
We want to go then. But it's throughout the year. It's up until December, and it's 2 days a month.
Okay.
And it's from about 7 a.m. until roughly lunchtime. Sometime around then.
All right,
Yeah.
cool. So what kind of events have you guys got coming up to promote and educate waste reduction and recycling here in Greensboro this year?
This year. So the biggest thing is our increased tagging. That is something we're really focusing on. But as far as education and outreach, we go to a lot of We go to a lot of schools, places like that. If you're ever out at the farmers market, the Greensboro farmers markets, specifically like the curb and the corner farmers markets, we go there a lot. We'll actually be there this weekend and the following weekend at the farmers market. So you can come see us there if you have any questions. And maybe get some freebies. We've got some
swag is always good.
Yeah, got some swag.
Now, last fall, you guys did a fall festival, right? Mm-hmm. And how did that go? That was a recycling rodeo?
Yeah, well, we have a recycle rodeo coming up.
Okay.
The specifics are not really out yet, but we do have another one coming up. It was a huge success.
That's
People
what I heard.
loved it. Yes, it was popping. It really was.
That's awesome.
And then we had the Fall Farm Fest, which was so much fun, and we hope to do that again this year, but we, again, don't have the specifics on that quite yet, but yeah.
So you feel like maybe you'll have more events kind of in that vein as far as like the spring and then the summer?
Yes, we'll have plenty of spring and fall events this year, so you can always check us out on Facebook, and we update our information there where GSO Goes Green on Facebook.
Nice. All right. So how can people get in touch with you if they want to set up like an educational opportunity? And, what kind of venues do you usually do or that you usually go to as I trip over my words?
You're good. You're good. Okay. So we go to anywhere. We go anywhere. Anywhere. No, but really we will go to most places. Like we do banks, we do schools, book clubs. If you want to have a girls' night and call us over,
that's awesome.
Let us come over to your house and teach. We're willing to go anywhere if people want to learn about recycling and waste reduction. Okay.
What's the best place to make that request or talk to you about it?
Well, again, you can email us at the gogreen at greensboro-nc.gov email. And then there's actually on our website, it's greensboro-nc.gov/recycle edu. There's a form you can fill out there to request, and that's really the best way to do it.
Okay, awesome. So coming from, I'm gonna circle back to the beginning of the show, but coming from someone who knows a lot about recycling and has spent a lot of years learning how to do it and continues to learn, what advice could you give to people as far as how to make it simpler, how to make it effective, but also routine? You know what I mean? I think a lot of people get just kind of lost in the routine of recycling, and they don't, it's hard for them to learn more or think, hey, before I throw this container away, before I throw this clamshell, which is plastic, but shouldn't go in recycling.
Yes.
What are some good habits that maybe folks could develop?
Well, I think one thing that's helped me out, and I know a lot of other people out, is using the GSO Collects app. That app has the Waste Wizard on there, and I'm not just trying to promote it get our app. No, it is actually.
It is awesome.
It is so helpful for me. Sometimes I'm like, oh man, what do I tell? My grandma will ask me a question so that is really the best thing to do whenever you're going to put anything in your recycling. If you're not sure. Well, we do tell people sometimes, when in doubt, throw it out, but we don't want good recyclables to go in the trash, so check the app.
Check the app.
That's the best thing.
Okay. And I know here, at least in some of the city facilities, we've got posters that are kind of recycling is easy as 1, 2, 3. Can folks get that? Is there something that maybe they could put up in front of their bins or in the kitchen just as a way to remind themselves? Yeah,
we have recycling guides that we'll send out to anyone who requests one. Those are great. They have so much information on them. And if you want posters or any kind of information like that, we are so happy to give it out to anyone who requests it.
Okay. And you got the contact information, folks. So do your best. Try to learn a little bit more about recycling. And, we all struggle with it sometimes, but it's something that we all really need to be better at doing. Because as she said at the start of the show, if we don't, it's going to get nasty out there, folks. All right, Masey, thanks for coming on the show. I'm always glad to have you, and come back again in the spring or as soon as you can. Tell us how the events are going and if you've collected more data and how the tagging went, and keep us up to date.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
All right, it's our pleasure. Stay tuned in weekly by subscribing to Talk City Greensboro on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play. And don't forget, you can download Talk City from SoundCloud. That's it for this week. Thanks for tuning in to Talk City. Be sure to watch GTN, your official source for news and information about the City of Greensboro. GTN is available on Spectrum Channel 13, AT&T UVerse Channel 99, and North State Channel 31. GTN also streams live on Roku and the city's website at greensboro-nc.gov. Thanks for listening.